Hello. Today I will be looking at the Sigma 39 to 80 millimeter manual focus zoom lens. You heard that right. This is not a prime lens, it is a zoom lens. Now, I wasn't going to review zoom lenses on this channel because of these older lenses, zoom lenses tend not to be very good, or at least that's what I've been told. There's two reasons, however, that I've decided to review this lens. One, I'm running out of prime lenses to review, that I own anyway. And two, of all of the lenses that I reviewed so far, the Sigma prime lens and the Takamar prime lens have had the most views so far and seem to be the most popular videos, so I thought I'd do another Sigma lens. And three, I already have photos that I've taken with this lens. Last summer when I was taking pictures in the public gardens nearby, I took both Sigma lenses with me. In fact, I took a third Sigma lens with me that turned out not to work very well. I think it was the aperture was completely stuck on it, so it was stuck at whatever its wide open aperture was. But this one worked, so thought I'd review it. Also, Sigma is still making lenses today, and they make pretty good lenses. I didn't know whether or not this lens would be good, but we'll see in a minute. This lens has a PK mount on it, but this lens was made with Sigma's YS interchangeable mount system. So when it came out, you could get the lens with either a PK mount, a Minolta, a M42, maybe a Canon mount, and get it for different camera bodies. So if you look for them online, you might see them with different mounting adapters. And as usual, get an adapter, go to B&H Photo or Amazon, pick up an adapter for about $15. You can adapt it to any modern mirrorless or DSLR camera. This particular one came out in, according to my research, 1975, and was the first zoom lens in their XQ series. Although, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, the overhead. It says Sigma across the top there. The pictures that I saw online, it actually said Sigma-XQ, but everything else on here was identical. So maybe there's been multiple versions of this lens. I'm not sure. It's a pretty heavy lens for the size. It weighs about 17 ounces, and it's mostly metal and glass. The rings for zoom, focus, and aperture all have these nice little rubber grips on them, but the rest of the lens is all metal and glass, and it's pretty heavy for the size. The focus ring on this one goes less than 90 degrees. That's maybe 60 degrees total, which makes it kind of difficult to focus. And it also has a minimum focusing distance of 2 meters. The zoom goes from 39 to 80, and that has about a 90-degree throw for the zoom, which is interesting. I mean, this is less space to turn here, so that's really hard to focus. And the aperture goes from f3.5 to f22, and they are half-stop increments, including there's a half-stop between the 16 and the 22, which is pretty unusual. And 3.5 to 4, I think, is technically only a third of a stop, but there's one click there. The aperture has, 6 blades. I forgot to write that down. The aperture has 6 blades. It also has this interesting macro switch, which normally it says normal right here. Let's see if that says, you can see that in the camera. But there's this metal piece that you have to press in and then twist, and then it has macro from 1 to 9 up to 1 to 3.5 macro settings. And I thought this is kind of different. Usually when a lens has a macro setting, it's built into the zoom. You just zoom farther. But this one has a separate thing for it, which is different. And also, the macro ring moves the rear element of the lens. In the macro mode, I found that it was easier to focus by actually changing the zoom than changing the focus. This lens also has threads on the front for a 62mm filter. And this particular lens, when I looked at it in stronger light, appears to have some kind of moisture or fungus on the inner elements, which could be affecting some of my shots later. So when you look at that, it might not be the lens in general, it's just this one seems to have some kind of moisture or fungus on it. I would try to get a shot of that to show in the video, but I don't think I'll be able to. Now let's look at the charts. Like I said, at 39mm, I could not get the camera close enough to the chart to get the entire thing in frame and still be able to focus on it. I had to back the camera at least 2 meters away, which is about 6 feet, and then at 39mm, the chart is this little tiny thing in the middle. But here it is. I will zoom in on what I can, and it's kind of hard to see what's in focus or not because I have to zoom in so much. At 80mm, it's a bit closer, but it's still kind of hard to zoom in on it. But at the macro setting, I was able to get the camera about 6 inches from the chart and zoom in on it. So here's the chart at 6 inches with the macro set to the 1 to 3.5 setting at f8. We'll look at the distortion chart. At 39mm, we see there's some barrel distortion here. And at 50mm, it's pretty good. And at 80mm, we can see some pincushion distortion. Now we'll look at some sample photos. Like I said, I took these in the same gardens as the other Sigma lens. In fact, it was the same day. At f3.5, things seem kind of hazy. That may be due to the moisture or the fungus that I mentioned earlier. It could also be lens flare from the sky, although I believe it was an overcast day. And it may also be because the shallow depth of field at 3.5 is just harder to focus on anything, but it doesn't seem to be focused on anything at all. At f8, things are a bit sharper. There's still some haze, especially at the 39mm, but at 50mm and 80mm, the images start to look better. And then since this is a macro lens, I thought I would try a macro shot on this flower. And then since I was doing some macro things with this lens, I decided just this afternoon, before doing this video, to try a macro shot of a coin. So here is I believe a 100 yen piece that I happen to have in my coin collection. You can see the text on it is fairly clear, but there's a blooming effect around the entire coin. I don't know if that's because of the lens itself or if that's because of the moisture or the fungus that I mentioned might actually be on this particular copy of this lens. I would hope it's just this copy of this lens and not this model of this lens in general. In conclusion, it's really hard to say. I was prepared for this to be a disappointment simply because, from what I've heard, older zoom lenses tend not to be very good. The older manual focus zoom lenses. They're just as good as the modern ones. And I know Sigma makes some really good modern lenses. But this lens does seem to be disappointing for Sigma, but I'm pretty sure it's due to this particular lens having some fungus or moisture inside the lens. A better copy of this lens would have been better, but it's the one I had. The macro function on this lens does seem to be promising, although the lens itself is kind of heavy, and so you would want to put the camera on a tripod. I was doing all of these handheld, and it was kind of difficult to hold and zoom and get focus on things. And also, I'm assuming that the blooming that I saw in the photos that I took was just a problem with this lens, not the whole model in general. I was able to find one of these on eBay for about $40, and it came with the lens caps and a looked like a leather case, lens case. So that's the Sigma 39 to 80mm manual focus zoom lens. If you like this video, please click the like button, and if you would like to see more videos like this, click subscribe and then ring the little bell icon to be notified of future videos. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.